Hello, everybody. This is Russell Canning, and I have a new person on, Dan Buschbacher.
Hi, Russell. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I can hear you fine. Sounds like it'll work fine recording. So, this is Dan is a member of our NHexit community online, and I wanted to have him on, like I do with everybody I can get a hold of, to find out their interest in it, when it started, and all that kind of stuff, and what they think is going on right now. So, Dan, Uh, when did you first get interested in secession or decentralization?
I could run through my whole libertarian origin story, which would start back in probably 1999. But in terms of secession specifically, I would want to say my gateway in was nullification and the big movements that were going on in the early 20 teens, 2013, 2014, on the topic of nullification. Reading more about it, watching more of the podcasts, and through nullifications, actually, when I found out about the Free State Project and the idea of secession as not being something that's a naughty word.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's a, each. I think each one of us that would have to be our transition, right? Because in America, we're taught in school that that's something that we don't do anymore.
Well, yeah, it's secession. You're a neo-Confederate. No, 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 no. Secession means I don't want to be part of this. It doesn't mean anything else.
I don't know when they started with the neo-Confederate thing, because like when I was younger, I never heard that. But we've been hearing that for like what 10, 20 years now, haven't we?
Oh, it's at least 10. I
Yeah,
remember the Tom Woods interview with the zombie, and they kept and Bob Murphy kept saying that. So
I know that would be perfect. I mean, it's the perfect answer. Just like right now, we're getting that everything's racist, right? I mean, or no, you're a white supremacist, and you don't even have to be white to be a white supremacist. So it's a little rough. You can't avoid the moniker. So you first ran into the idea of state nullification of federal laws. Is that what you're talking about? Like 10th Amendment Center and things like that? Those kinds of things. Let's see. You probably got it from the 10th Amendment Center, and we're figuring that kind of stuff out. I lost Dan here for a second, so we'll see if he comes back
as
again.
I let my computer screen go back to
Okay.
and that is
I
my
was
fault.
I was
User
just
error on my part.
asking. Yeah, so I was just asking you. When did you? So did you? The nullification, was that through the 10th Amendment Center and the idea of states nullifying federal laws?
I actually found out about the 10th Amendment Center after
Oh, so where
the
did you
idea of
first?
nullification. Well,
Yeah,
I
so
actually
where were
got
you first hearing about it?
I went down a rabbit hole of reading Tom Woods material,
Okay.
and of course
So
he's friends with Michael Bolden of the 10th Amendment Center, and thus I was introduced to him that way.
yeah, okay. So what was the first Tom Woods thing that you got?
Oh, that's a good question. It's been so long. I don't think I can rightly say.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
I read his
interesting.
book Meltdown
Okay.
on the 2008 collapse.
Yeah, okay. So it might have been, sometime after that, maybe. And
Well, he was heavily
I
involved in the 2008 Ron Paul campaign, so that's definitely
okay.
where I get to know who he was.
Okay, yeah. I think for me, part of my path to some of these libertarian ideas that I hadn't run into before was through the Austrian economics guys. I was kind of a Chicago school guy. That's what I kind of was
Sure.
taught. And so then, but I had a problem with the idea of, like some of the ideas like where, okay, well, we need to, the government needs to be in charge of the money, but it just needs to be doing a better job of it, or don't let it get out of control. And that never made any sense to me. So when I first ran into the Mises guys talking about how, well, you should just have gold and silver as money, just don't don't have the government in charge of it and things like that. That made so much sense to me. So I probably ran into Tom Wood stuff with his politically incorrect guide to American history or something
Oh,
like
that's an
that.
excellent one. Yes.
So yeah, that's probably and then nullification. Some of the nullification stuff I probably didn't hear. That's not what you're taught in school.
No, no, not at
I mean,
all.
that would be exactly opposite of what you're allowed to do.
Yeah, you're not taught about jury nullification. You're not taught about federal, state nullification of federal laws. You are taught that the federal government makes the law and you follow it. And that's how it is.
Yeah, and then it's just a matter of how much of that. But I mean, the actual idea of that you'd purposely not be doing something that no, you got to wait years to vote people in. You've got to get laws changed. Right?
Exactly.
It could take forever.
Yeah, as opposed to, no, you know what? I'm not going to do that law right there. That doesn't make any sense. I'm just not going to comply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we all can look back at stuff and think, okay, well, the federal government was okay with that, but that's not okay. So I can't do that.
Well, exactly. I mean, they can ask you to do, well, Real ID is a great example of it. When they first brought the idea out, and New Hampshire was one of the test states, and of course there was a big hullabaloo about it, and there was fierce opposition to it. And then Obama takes over his office, and then it becomes okay because all the other states that were opposing are now okay with it.
Yeah, that's one of their tactics, isn't it? They kind of whipsaw us back and forth, whether it's every 4 years or 8 years or other stuff.
Well,
So,
go on.
yeah, what were you saying?
Oh, I was going to say because there isn't a dime bit of difference between the two parties. They're basically
Yeah,
the same.
yeah. That's so. When did you figure that part out?
Oh, I probably had the come to Jesus moment during the Bush first term, but didn't actually realize it till his second. I want to
Yeah,
say it was. I remember the '99 Republican primary debate when Alan Keyes brought up the topic of income tax. And he says, "Well, I say you can take a percentage of my income, but you get to tell me what percentage. That means you control all of my money."
yes,
And I remember sitting there going, "Well, that's exactly right."
yeah. I
But
think
then, of course,
I
it
think
took
I
all the way
voted for
till.
Alan. I think I voted for Alan Keyes like twice in a primary when I was living in California.
I mean, I'm not gonna get behind all of his proposals, but man, that just made so much sense. And
Yeah,
that was probably my first awakening to, hey, wait, this is wrong. And then
yeah,
you vote for the small government, and then you're immediately hit with No Child Left Behind, massive government takeover of the education system. And then 9/11 hits, and then we're in war, and then Medicare Part D, which we've never paid for, and just balloons up the national debt. And you're sitting there going, well, yeah, I mean, I want people to have prescription drug coverage, but does it have to cost that much? There's got to be a better way.
yeah. How do we decide these things? Yeah,
And then along comes Ron Paul, talking about the Federal Reserve and the messing with the money and why are we always in these wars and the blowback, and all of a sudden, well, yeah,
yeah.
this
So you
is
were starting to
exactly
put it
right.
all together. Yeah. So things started making more sense, didn't it?
Well, as soon as you realize that no matter who you vote for, you always get John McCain. As soon as you start to realize that everybody in power is just looking for more power, there's no one actually looking to reduce the size and scope of the government. No one's actually looking to expand freedom. They're only looking to take it away.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
when I
Amongst
was
that
introduced into
crowd.
libertarianism, and through there to where I am now.
Yeah. So so you went along the nullification path. What have you thought about secession? Is you think that's a good idea, or is it too much, or what do you think?
No, I'm in full support of the idea of secession. I mean, anytime you're in any kind of relationship that is abusive, that's not mutually beneficial, you need to find a way to either resolve that or get out of it.
No, that phraseology or that line of thinking how long have people been using that? Because I've only run into that recently, and I think it's a good way to put it.
Oh, about an abusive relationship?
Yeah.
Where did I first encounter that?
Yeah,
I'm
because
not 100% sure where I first
I've heard
encountered
that a
that.
few times in the last year, and I've thought, well, that's true. That's what it is. It's the gun in the room.
It
It's just like
is.
the Allen Keys thing of, well, we're going to decide how to do this kind of stuff, but then one of us decides how much it happens and when it happens and who it goes to, and and then now, what if I don't like? What if I only like 90% of the stuff? What do I
Well,
do?
yeah.
Or what
Well,
if
that's
I
the
only
thing. You
like
don't have an
10% of
option.
the stuff?
And in
Then
the current state of politics, it's all control or no control, and it's fight for dominance, and it's there's no communication between anybody. It's I'm in charge, and now I get to dictate terms. It's like, it never should have been that way,
hmm
and it doesn't have to be.
yeah. Well, I've just heard, Biden's going to get in and solve like climate change or something. They say, and I'm going, well, why didn't he whisper those secrets into Obama's ears 4 years ago or whatever?
Well, exactly, and
They could have fixed us everything back then.
yeah, he's gonna cure cancer, and he's gonna fix the economy, and he's gonna solve climate change. And of course, he couldn't tell Obama how to do any of that stuff. This is he had to wait till he gets in.
I know. We're supposed to believe this stuff. It's just always like this, man. So you would say that you would support people it being okay to secede for anybody,
Oh,
really?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. Do you think that any particular countries, or in our case, states, have a better case for it or have a better chance? What do you think about those kinds of things?
Well, in terms of how successful as a country they would be, or
Yeah, that'd be one way to think about it.
I mean, if we look at our poorest state, Mississippi, would be if we were all independent countries, well, they'd be, I think, 70th because there'd be 49 above them. But our poorest country, our poorest state, would be top 25 wealthiest countries in the world. So I don't think there's a single state in the union that couldn't succeed if given the opportunity. Get the government out of the way, let the people succeed. But of course, if the government did that, we wouldn't need to break up. But
Yeah, that's the thing. I think about that a lot too, because like say you take somebody like Mississippi, and yeah, wouldn't they be better off than Haiti
oh,
or
absolutely.
Nicaragua
Or
or some,
Italy.
right? I mean, why wouldn't why wouldn't they be able to make a go of it?
Yeah,
They
I don't
even
see any reason why any of the states or all of the states couldn't succeed independently.
Yeah, because unless they started a war with everybody around them,
Well, and
then they wouldn't suddenly go broke.
no, there's no reason for it. And it's one of the things that when I talk about secession with friends, they talk about, well, in within the states, there's free trade between the states. New
hmm
Hampshire has free trade with Illinois and free trade with Texas. Well, if we broke off, well, that would go away. Well, why? Why would that have to go away? Why couldn't we continue to trade freely? It's the peaceful thing to do.
Especially, I can't imagine any of these individual states that are thinking about breaking off having any plans to not trade with everybody else once that happened. I mean, would that be true of California or Texas or anybody else? No way.
No, why would they? And it's like one of the other things that I'll hear back is, well, am I going to be able to travel from state to state? Well, again, why wouldn't you be able to? Can you drive
hmm
into Canada? Of course you can. I mean, yes, there might be, maybe if the states want to have border checkpoints, they don't need to, but maybe they want them. Okay, fine. So maybe it takes a little bit longer, but there's no reason you couldn't just continue to drive like you do.
And New Hampshire could be choosing to be a great place to cross borders. Maybe we'd be better than average.
It's entirely possible. I mean, there'd be nothing on our side saying there has to be a problem. So I mean,
Yeah.
if Vermont or Massachusetts wants to make it a thing, well, we can talk about that. But
Yeah.
that's one of
And
those things we can talk about between ourselves.
Did you used to talk about secession in Illinois?
Yeah, yes, I had.
What did other people think about it?
The very first thing you're going to hear is that's a crazy idea that's never going to work.
Yeah.
And you try to get into why. Why wouldn't it work? Well, how are we going to fill the state budget without the money that the federal government is providing back to the states? Well, in some states' cases, then that may have a bit of an issue, but that doesn't mean their budget has to be what it is currently. But in a state like New Hampshire's case, well, that's actually a net positive for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially since the way they count the money coming back to your state would be mostly in things that you don't want to spend.
Well, exactly. Do we have
So
to have the largest military budget in the world? I don't think so.
no, I mean you even if you have the budget, I mean they're
Yeah.
okay. We got some savings right there.
Well, I don't disagree. I mean, we could hack the federal military budget to 1/3 its size and still be the largest in the world, three
Yeah,
times
so
over, I think.
if that's what somebody's worried about, yeah,
But that's the thing is, it's the when the objections start coming up, how would you defend yourself? How would trade look? How would foreign policy look? How would the interstate communications work? There's answers for those things
yeah,
that don't necessarily mean that we have to listen to the edicts from DC.
yeah. Why do they have to be involved in these things?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any particular reason for it.
Yeah, you could. I mean, it'd be easier to negotiate between New Hampshire and Massachusetts than always having Washington D.C. involved.
I would like to think that. I mean, if I'm having an issue with my neighbor, I can go have a conversation with them. I don't need to go over to City Hall and have them mediate. That just sounds absurd.
Yeah, and that usually turns into that really gets bad.
Well, and then that's when you get politics involved and you get power plays and who's paying off who and all kinds of nefarious things that don't need to be part of the equation.
Yeah. Yeah, and for a lot of us, if we were just to scale back our government to what it was 50 or 100 years ago instead of what the feds turned into now, just go back to the way it was a little while ago.
A classic example of that, I was reading an article today on the Foundation for Economic Education, so fee.org, and they had pointed out that in 1913, our budget was 2.5% of GDP as a nation.
Oh wow, yeah, 2.5,
and it's currently 31% of GDP as a nation.
Yeah,
I don't think we're getting 12 times better government.
Yeah,
for that
more,
amount.
Better. Yeah,
we're definitely getting a lot more.
More. Yeah, I know. That's just those numbers are just mind-boggling.
That's the thing. It's almost impossible to wrap your head around just how much waste, fraud, and abuse is going on in the system that everybody has to pay for. Well, if you want that, if you're Illinois and you want to be wasting your money, then God bless you, go waste it. But don't ask everyone else to do it for you.
Yeah, and I don't even picture any of these individual states. Say we all broke up right now. Even the most wasteful states would not be as bad as the federal government.
Oh, there's no way. Well, first off, they'd have no backstop.
Yeah, because there's a couple of times, when I was living in California, at least one time while I was there, they were basically going broke.
Oh.
So they had to back off.
There's a number of states talking about that right now.
Yeah, when we got rid of Gray Davis, they were basically going broke, and they eventually, they couldn't keep borrowing money forever, so then they had to scale back a little bit. It's still ridiculous, but not. It didn't just keep going up and up and up, right?
No, someone has to say no. Eventually, your creditors are going to say no or start charging exorbitant interest rates. It happens to you as an individual. It should happen to you as a state too.
Yeah, I mean, so even in Illinois' case, I mean, with all their corrupt politicians and all the crummy stuff they do, they don't print, they don't invent money. They're not at war with people. I mean, even if they wanted to start being at war with people, it still wouldn't be on the
And don't
same
get me wrong, they
scale.
probably would. They'd probably try to start with Wisconsin if they could.
They'd take over Wisconsin and be like a bully and take money from them.
That'd be an interesting battle. But
Yeah, that's so once so since you've moved to New Hampshire, this is kind of ramped up in your brain, right? You have more conversations.
well, you're around more like-minded people, so you're starting at a different point. So when you're around, even just your normal person on the street, they're not the dyed-in-the-wool partisan. I must vote blue no matter who, or I must vote MAGA because MAGA thing.
Yeah,
You don't
not as
have
much of
that
that.
here. So,
How much less do you think it was than Chicago?
oh, it is night and day.
Like half as much, or what do you think?
Oh, a tenth.
Wow. Okay.
The partisan politics is nowhere near what it is in
Yeah.
Chicago,
Huh.
and that's a very, very welcome thing.
Yeah. So then, so this has come. Ideas like nullification and secession have come up more with you, even with people you meet on the street or people you work with or things like that, right?
Well, yeah, people you're sitting around, you're sitting at the bar, and you're having a long distance conversation because you got to have at least 6 feet in between you and another human being. But you're having a long distance conversation with someone at the bar, and the absolute ridiculousness of the circumstance will inevitably come up.
Yeah, you're right. Do you think it's like? I mean, you're saying the COVID insanity.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that brings things up.
As well, it should. I mean,
Yeah.
it's here. It's right now. It's in your face, and
So
you're
what
having that
kind of?
conversation about how absurd this is, and just raise the issue. Like, you know what? Why don't we leave this? Why don't we get out of this government?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we don't have to be part of this.
Yeah.
See how the conversation goes.
Yeah, and and then that's just so it just goes from there. So, with you, what do you think your part is for NHexit? Is just talking to people,
Yeah,
or
honestly, I mean, boots on the ground and talking to people and spreading the idea. Um, that would probably be at least my where I would fit in quite well at this point.
yeah?
I
Well,
mean,
it
obviously,
definitely.
if you guys need me to do something, I'm usually willing to participate. Uh, I'm not big into civil disobedience. I have a difficult time with the idea of being arrested. But other than that,
That's normal.
yeah, I'm just saying. But other than
And
that, no. If you guys need me to do something, I'm usually available. But spreading the gospel, preaching the gospel on the street.
yeah. Well, and especially with talking to people, this is one of these issues where you're mostly not allowed to talk about it. So even
That's
just
true.
talking about it is a big step.
And most people that have even heard it come out of my mouth, they're open to the idea. Now,
Hmm.
I understand in 2016 there was the union poll that said 40% of people in New Hampshire were open to the idea of secession, and that's without even people talking about it.
Yeah, that's just out of the blue almost. Yeah, that's not
You know,
even it being a hubbub.
I mean, I'd like to see an updated number on that. Uh, but getting boots on the ground, getting people talking to it, talking about it, spread the idea. And
Yeah.
people are going to come up with issues. People are going to come up with things that we haven't thought about. Well, what happens in this case? What happens in that case? If New Hampshire secedes, what about the people who don't want to secede? What happens
Yeah.
with them?
Yeah. Do you think people will migrate or will they just stay here or what?
Well, therein lies the question. I would think they would probably move, but
Yeah, if I didn't agree with that, I would. Yeah, I think that's what I would do. Right.
yeah, I mean
If,
that's what I. But that doesn't mean that's what they're going to do. And I mean, I would certainly be against forcing them to move. So there has to be a solution.
yeah, and the whole point of us seceding would make it making a place that's much more free,
Oh,
so we'd be able to
absolutely.
let these people decide things.
Or the it's not like I think it came up in an earlier podcast that you had is people who are on Social Security.
Hmm.
And I heard one of the answers is, well, if you move to another country, you still get it if you're eligible for it. But this would be, I think, more akin to renouncing your citizenship as opposed to just moving.
Yeah, well, that would be if you were a person living in a state that had seceded. Would the federal government, the U.S. government, treat all of those people as people that had renounced their citizenship?
That's an excellent question.
I kind
I
of doubt
certainly
it,
don't have a
but
good answer for that.
yeah. And I know I was just hearing one of the guys in Texas talking about that, thinking the same thing, where you could have people inside of your new country who are still affiliated, especially if we don't force them to choose, right?
Right?
You can treat them as, oh, okay, these are people that have citizenship somewhere else, but we're not forcing people to do that kind of stuff.
No, I mean, I would imagine that New Hampshire would be perfectly amiable to someone of a foreign nationality, nation living here and being a productive member of society. That doesn't mean they'd want to, or that the U.S. would be okay with that, though I'd hope they would.
Hmm. Yeah, what kind of people would want to move out? I wonder how extreme would it have to be for people to think, okay, I got to get out of here.
I haven't the foggiest idea, but then again, I don't understand why a lot of people do the things they do now. So,
Yeah, what other things can you think of that are little problems that have come up in your mind?
utilities, the
Ah,
interconnectivity of the grid, the electric grid in particular.
I don't know how interconnected New Hampshire is to the other stuff.
If I'm not mistaken, New Hampshire looked pretty tied in when I last looked at it, though I
Yeah.
very well might be looking at something that's entirely wrong.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to look that up and see what I can find. Because yeah, they're all very different. Each state is very different that way. And where do they get their stuff from? How many connections are there to everything else and stuff like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what would the untangling actually look like?
Or
So
can it all stay the same?
well,
I don't.
I mean, I wouldn't see any reason why it couldn't.
Yeah,
In
I don't know.
the let's say and I have absolutely no idea, but if all of our power generation was in Vermont and Maine and Massachusetts, and I'm sure it's not, but let's just say it was,
Hmm.
there's no reason we couldn't continue to have that, and they would continue to profit the way they do.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder how that would be, with if you're all interconnected with that kind of stuff. Because
But it's
I knew a
it's
guy.
it's it's a
I knew
thought.
a
It's
guy
a,
that
it's a
worked.
question.
Yeah, I knew a guy that worked at Southern California Edison his whole life, and we used to talk about that because Washington, Oregon, California, and then back up to Vegas are all connected. So it
Oh
gets
wow.
very complicated.
Oh, I
There's
believe it.
and most of the power is coming from the Grand Coulee Dam up in Washington. So it's a big, complicated system. And of course, the last 30, 40 years, they've been trying to figure out how to do it the worst possible way so that things go wrong.
I thought that was built into the plan.
Maybe.
Yeah,
But he was
we have to
talking
take
about
an
how bad it
inefficient
was.
system, make it worse, and then make people more reliant on it.
Yeah, and he was talking about how hard it was to keep the levels equal and how that's why they do the brownouts and the other problems and how anything goes along and then trying to get it all evened out is complicated.
Oh,
So
that sounds like what they really need is all electric cars by 2035. That's going to
I
solve
know
that problem.
that's what's so funny when you start hearing about forcing places to do electric cars, and they don't even have a good electric system right now. I
Yeah,
think we have a
that
better
sounds like a
gas
good,
system in
great
California
idea.
than we have electric. uh, me filling up a truck with diesel, I've never had it where I don't have any diesel I can buy in California. But there are times where there's no power in the middle of summer.
And down in Southern California, that is a tough burden to be with.
Yeah, I've had that. So, uh, well, let's see here. I think we've covered some stuff, and maybe we can have you on again sometime, either when you have an idea or it just kind of comes around, and I'll contact you again. I was gonna do some housekeeping of NHexit news. Uh, Porcfest is going to happen the 21st through the 28th of June is the date they've chosen. And I just got us a spot in spot number 18, which is a park model, one of those little tiny houses
Oh,
they
excellent.
have in there. And that way we can have an NHexit spot, and I'm going to call it like a consulate. And we can
I like
have
it.
an info desk there all day long.
I like it. So that's your village is going to be spot 18. That should be excellent.
Yeah, so we'll have so that's like the second row, and like we're the fourth place down from like the playground and like 2-3 spots away from um, the emergency place.
Okay.
So it'll be close for stuff. So I'm planning on we'll have an info desk there, and we'll keep normal bureaucrat hours for a
Oh,
consulate.
perfect.
We'll be there like 9 to 5, and we'll take a leisurely lunch like good bureaucrats would. And but people will always be able to find somebody there giving out info and stuff like that. And then we'll have to work on. And then the good thing is we'll be able to, if it's raining, we can be indoors, and if it's nice, we'll be out on the picnic table. But that just happened today. I finally got that, and so we can start making plans. So anybody that wants to contact me, please do tell me what you want to do, how you want to help, any ideas you have, and you can contact me through either Russell at NHexit.org or through various social media. I was off of Facebook for about 3 weeks mysteriously, but now I'm back. So we're back on all the different places that we're at. So, but we'll be looking into that, and you guys can give me better ideas for naming the things. I'm thinking maybe we need to be pretending we're our own new country, and we'll just kind of go with that. We
There you
could give
go.
out people student visas or uh, uh, tourist visas. We can't promise them safe travel because there's this horrible. Our New Hampshire sovereignty is always at risk with the feds around. So we haven't freed ourselves yet, but we can be making our steps.
I like it. Say, hey, fake it till you make it.
Yeah, that's perfect. Maybe that needs to be another one of our slogans. NHexit. A new country. We'll fake it until we can make it.
Why not?
Yeah, I like that
What's the
idea.
worst that happens?
All right, Dan. Well, this worked out great. We'll try to do this again sometime.
Well, Russ, thank you very much for having me. I had a great time.
All right. Thanks.
All righty.